On the 6th of June 1944, off Normandy's coast, United States Navy landing ship tanks churned through choppy seas, carrying Sherman tanks to Utah and Omaha beaches. Admiral Alan Kirk commanded Western Naval Task Force with thousands of vessels. Approximately 230 landing ship tanks supported the operation across 5 sectors. German Panzer Group West, led by General Leo Gehr von Schweppenberg, waited inland, poised to crush the invasion. Unloading times varied by tide and conditions. Favorable setups allowed under 2 hours for full discharge. Waves crashed against hulls as crews wrestled with ramps, ensuring armor reached shore swiftly. Duplex-drive Shermans, fitted with flotation screens, swam at 4 knots in calm seas, delivering firepower directly to the sand. German coastal guns fired from entrenched positions, suppressed by Allied fleet salvos including USS Texas. Engineers had rehearsed landings for months, mastering rapid deployment despite chaos. The invasion's success hinged on this speed, outpacing German reserves near Caen. Steel ramps slammed onto beaches, releasing tanks to climb dunes and breach hedgerows. Naval coordination, honed in North Africa, synchronized landings across 5 sectors. Each landing ship tank could carry up to 20 Sherman tanks, or equivalent loads, near 1,900 tons of vehicles and cargo, unloaded in tight windows. German defenses, expecting a slower assault, faltered as American armor pressed inland. Smoke rose from bombarded bunkers, while tank treads chewed through Normandy's soil. The Allies aimed to secure a beachhead within hours, a feat demanding flawless engineering. German Panzers, positioned within 20 miles of beaches, needed hours to mobilize, delayed by Hitler's orders. This gap in tempo set the stage for a relentless advance. Steel treads ground over Normandy's sand as American tanks rolled off landing ship tanks, their engines roaring against the dawn of the 6th of June, 1944. Approximately 230 landing ship tanks, each capable of carrying up to 20 Shermans or 1,900 tons of cargo, delivered armor to Utah and Omaha beaches with practiced precision. Crews, drilled in rehearsals like Exercise Tiger, navigated pontoons and rhino ferries to unload vehicles despite swells and sporadic gunfire. The constraint was tidal shifts. High water slowed ramps, yet most tanks reached shore within hours. Duplex-drive Shermans, moving at 4 knots in calm seas, churned through surf, though 27 sank in rough waters off Omaha. Allied naval guns, including USS Texas, pounded coastal batteries, suppressing many, but not all German emplacements, allowing engineers to clear obstacles swiftly. German Panzer Group West, stationed within 20 miles of Caen, stood ready but immobile, awaiting Hitler's approval to engage. Allied air forces flew 11,590 sorties on D-Day, bombing bridges and rail lines, stranding tanks in transit. Only 70 of 180 tanks in the 21st Panzer Division reached combat by dusk, slowed by fuel shortages and wrecked roads. American tank crews, like those in the 741st Tank Battalion, pushed through hedgerows, their 32-ton Shermans outpacing German expectations. Smoke and dust cloaked the beaches as armor surged inland, linking Utah and Omaha by nightfall. The German counterattack, meant to hurl invaders back, remained a distant threat, tangled in chaos and indecision. American tanks rumbled off Normandy's beaches, their 32-ton frames carving paths through hedgerows by the 7th of June, 1944, as German reserves faltered. Approximately 230 landing ship tanks, each capable of carrying up to 1,900 tons of vehicles and cargo, had unloaded hundreds of Shermans, enabling advances toward key objectives like Carentan. Engineers cleared minefields and built temporary roads, ensuring vehicles moved inland within hours of landing. Naval gunfire, including salvos from USS Texas, suppressed many German batteries, though some strong points at Omaha fired for hours, pinning infantry until tanks arrived. The number that matters is 4 knots. Duplex drive. Sherman's speed in calm seas, critical for early beachhead firepower. Crews of the 70th Tank Battalion at Utah, soaked and battered, drove through smoke, supporting infantry linking with 101st Airborne paratroopers by June 8. Allied air forces, flying 11,590 sorties, shredded German supply lines, stalling panzer movements. German commanders, tethered to Hitler's orders, hesitated as Panzer Group West's headquarters at Lacane awaited clearance. Bridges lay in ruins, and rail lines burned, delaying the 21st Panzer Division near Caen, which deployed roughly 100 Panzer IVs in scattered counterattacks on June 6. A German platoon leader cursed delayed orders, his Panzer IV stalled by congested roads. The 12th SS Panzer Division, moving toward Caen by June 7, faced Allied airstrikes and sabotaged routes, slowing their advance against Canadian forces. American armor, unchallenged by massed counterattacks, seized key roads, turning hedgerows into fortified lines. German blitzkrieg tactics frayed under Allied precision and speed. American tank crews gripped controls, their 32-ton Shermans grinding through Normandy's muddy fields, as the 7th of June, 1944, stretched into its second day. Approximately 230 landing ship tanks, each capable of carrying up to 1,900 tons of vehicles and cargo, had delivered hundreds of tanks to Utah and Omaha beaches, fueling a relentless push toward Carentan. Crews of the 70th Tank Battalion, drenched from sea spray and sweat, navigated hedgerows under sporadic mortar fire, their engines roaring at full throttle for hours. Naval gunfire from ships like USS Texas hammered German strongpoints, though Omaha's cliffs still bristled with machine guns, forcing tankers to weave through narrow gaps. Engineers, wielding bulldozers and explosives, cleared beach obstacles in under 4 hours at Utah under ideal conditions, enabling armor to surge inland. The constraint was terrain. Sunken lanes and thick bocage slowed advances, yet American adaptability kept momentum alive. Soldiers of the 101st Airborne, scattered behind Utah, cheered as Shermans rolled up, their 32-ton bulk a shield against German snipers. Across the front, Allied air forces deployed 11,590 aircraft, flying 14,674 sorties, bombing rail yards and bridges, choking German supply lines. Fuel trucks burned, and panzer crews, miles from the beaches, cursed empty tanks. The French resistance, striking at night, cut telegraph lines and derailed trains, further tangling German logistics. At Omaha, Lieutenant Dean Rockwell, commanding Landing Craft Tank Group 35 of Flotilla 12, coordinated the delivery of duplex drive tanks to the beach, deciding against sea launches due to heavy swells. His crews, trained for months, maneuvered craft through surf, landing tanks despite rising tides. At Omaha, a tanker of the 741st Tank Battalion recalled his Sherman lurching through surf, its turret swiveling to silence a pillbox spitting tracer rounds. Smoke hung heavy, blending with dawn mist, as American armor carved paths toward Carentan, where paratroopers held fragile lines. German forces, meanwhile, reeled under mounting disarray. Panzer Group West, headquartered at Lacane, awaited Hitler's orders, losing precious hours. The 21st Panzer Division, fielding roughly 100 tanks and assault guns near Caen, launched scattered counterattacks on June 6, but Allied airstrikes and wrecked infrastructure slowed their advance. By June 7, the 12th SS Panzer Division began engaging Canadian forces near Caen, their Panther tanks struggling through bombed-out roads and fuel shortages. A German company commander, stranded near Falaise, watched his Panzer IV idle, its fuel gauge near zero after Allied bombs hit a depot. German doctrine, built on rapid armored thrusts, crumbled against decentralized Allied tactics. Field Marshal Erwin Rommel, absent from Normandy during the invasion's first hours, scrambled to redirect units, but communication lines, severed by sabotage, left orders undelivered. The number that matters is 24 hours. Delay in panzer deployment, fatal under Allied pressure. French civilians, caught in the crossfire, bore witness to the unfolding chaos. Near Caen, Marie-Louise Osmont, a local resident, scribbled in her diary about American tanks rumbling past her home, their treads tearing up fields. She saw German soldiers, exhausted and disorganized, retreating through villages, their trucks bogged down on cratered roads. Allied aircraft roared overhead, their bombs shaking the earth, while German panzers, expected to dominate, remained scattered. The contrast was stark. American tankers, supported by engineers and naval guns, pressed forward with mechanical precision, while German crews, hampered by command paralysis, floundered. By June 12, American armor linked Utah and Omaha through Carentan, securing a beachhead that stretched miles inland. German counterattacks, meant to sever this link, arrived piecemeal, their momentum broken by Allied air superiority and ground speed. The human toll mounted on both sides. American tankers, cramped in their Shermans, faced constant danger from hidden anti-tank guns and snipers. A single Panzerfaust could turn a 32-ton tank into a burning wreck, yet crews pushed on, guided by maps and radio chatter. Engineers, exposed to fire, laid steel matting to stabilize roads, ensuring supply trucks followed armor. At sea, landing craft tank crews battled fatigue, delivering duplex drive tanks under shell fire, their ramps slick with oil and seawater. German soldiers, meanwhile, grappled with despair as their blitzkrieg tactics failed. A lieutenant in the 21st Panzer Division, advancing near Caen, saw his company suffer heavy losses as Allied typhoons strafed their column, destroying vehicles before they fired a shot. French civilians, like Osmont, hid in cellars, their homes trembling from artillery duels, praying for liberation, yet fearing the cost. The Allied advance, driven by engineering prowess, outpaced German expectations. Duplex-drive Shermans, moving at 4 knots in calm seas, had given Americans an edge on D-Day, landing firepower where it was least expected. By mid-June, temporary Mulberry harbors began operating, funneling more tanks and supplies ashore. Engineers assembled these floating docks under fire, their steel caissons anchoring a lifeline for the invasion. German commanders, trained for fluid armored warfare, found their panzers bogged down in static defenses, unable to mass effectively. The French resistance, striking fuel dumps and rail lines, amplified this paralysis, ensuring Panzergruppe West's tanks trickled into battle rather than surged. American tankers, though bloodied, held their ground, their Shermans outnumbering and outmaneuvering German armor in the bocage. The invasion's early hours had exposed a truth. Engineering speed trumped armored might when command faltered. Allied air forces, with 11,590 aircraft flying 14,674 sorties, continued to dominate skies, strafing German columns and supply convoys. Tank crews on both sides adapted to the bocage's confines, where visibility dropped to yards and ambushes lurked in every shadow. American engineers innovated on the fly, welding steel hedge-cutters to Sherman prows, allowing tanks to burst through earthen banks like battering rams. German Panzers, heavier and less maneuverable, bogged in the same terrain, their tracks churning mud into quagmires. By June 13, the beachhead measured 10 miles deep, with thousands of vehicles ashore, thanks to landing ship tanks unloading 1,900 tons per vessel in sequenced waves. Crews rotated shifts, fighting exhaustion as tides dictated schedules. Yet the flow never halted. German frustration boiled over in fragmented assaults. The 21st Panzer Division, its roughly 100 tanks and assault guns split across fronts, probed American lines near Bayeux, but recoiled under concentrated artillery. Oberst Hermann von Oppelin-Bronichowski, commanding the division's armor, urged swift action, only to face higher command's caution. Allied deception, including Operation Fortitude's Phantom Army at Calais, kept reserves divided, delaying reinforcements by days. French villagers emerged from hiding to guide American patrols, their whispers of German positions turning the tide in skirmishes. Marie-Louise Osmont noted the shift. American trucks now clogged roads, once held by retreating Wehrmacht columns, their olive-drab hulls a sign of inevitable change. The rhythm of battle settled into a grind. American tankers brewed coffee in hulls between firefights, sharing cigarettes with infantrymen who clung to treads for cover. German crews, low on ammunition, scavenged from wrecked vehicles, their radios crackling with pleas for fuel that went unanswered. Engineers bridged craters with Bailey sections, each span erected in hours under sniper fire, linking supply lines across flooded fields. The duplex drive innovation, proven at 4 knots in calmer waters, inspired further adaptations, though losses at Omaha tempered enthusiasm for amphibious risks. By late June, Mulberry A at Omaha processed thousands of tons daily before storms wrecked it, forcing reliance on captured ports. This engineering resilience sustained the push, while German rigidity, centralized orders, overextended flanks eroded their edge. Human endurance defined the front. A 70th Tank Battalion crewman, hunkered in his Sherman during a night raid, spotted German scouts through periscopes, his .50 caliber, barking into darkness. Across no man's land, a 12th SS Panzer Grenadier clutched his MG-42, waiting for dawn that brought Typhoon rockets instead. Civilians like Osmont rationed bread amid rubble, their fields pockmarked by shells, yet they slipped messages to resistance cells, hastening Allied gains. The war's machinery ground on, tanks dueling in mist-shrouded valleys, where a single round could decide a platoon's fate. American momentum, built on swift landings and air cover, pressed Germans into defensive knots, their counterattack dreams fading with each delayed hour. American Shermans, their 32-ton hulls, grinding through Normandy's bocage, pressed deeper inland by mid-June 1944, their treads leaving scars on battered fields. Approximately 230 landing ship tanks, each unloading up to 1,900 tons of vehicles and cargo, had transformed Utah and Omaha beaches into supply hubs, feeding armor toward Carrington and beyond. Tank crews of the 70th Tank Battalion, faces blackened by exhaust, maneuvered through sunken lanes, their turrets swiveling for hidden Panzerfausts. Engineers welded hedge-cutters to Shermans, slicing through earthen walls in minutes, a makeshift solution born of necessity. Naval gunfire, led by ships like USS Texas, continued pounding German positions, though Omaha's remaining strongpoints demanded point-blank tank fire to silence. Allied air forces, with 11,590 aircraft, flying 14,674 sorties on D-Day, maintained relentless pressure, strafing German convoys and railheads. The number that matters is 70%. Bridge destruction rate by Allied bombs, crippling Panzer mobility. German Panzer Group West, headquartered at Lacaine, faced mounting chaos as Allied bombs struck its command post on June 10, killing staff and severing communications. The 21st Panzer Division, fielding roughly 100 tanks and assault guns, probed American lines near Bayeux, but faltered under artillery barrages and Typhoon rocket strikes. Oberst Hermann von Oppelin-Bronikowski, commanding the division's armor, watched his Panzer IVs stall in mud, their fuel lines choked by sabotage depots. The 12th SS Panzer Division, engaging Canadians near Caen, lost momentum as Panther tanks bogged down on cratered roads, their 50-ton weight a liability in the bocage. German doctrine, honed for open-field blitzkrieg, struggled in Normandy's tight terrain, where visibility dropped to yards. A company commander of the 12th SS cursed Allied aircraft, pinning his column, his Panthers burning before reaching the front. Allied engineers, undeterred by sniper fire, erected Bailey bridges across flooded streams, each span supporting 32-ton Shermans in under 6 hours of construction. At Omaha, Lieutenant Dean Rockwell's landing craft tank crews, having delivered duplex drive tanks at 4 knots through heavy surf, shifted to ferrying supplies, their ramps grinding against sand. A 70th Tank Battalion crewman, peering through his periscope, recalled a German anti-tank gun flashing in the dusk, his Sherman's 75mm round answering before the enemy reloaded. French civilians, like Marie-Louise Osmont near Seon, watched American tanks roll past, their olive-drab hulls dwarfing German trucks fleeing through villages. The French resistance, armed with dynamite, derailed supply trains, ensuring Panzergruppe West's tanks trickled into battle rather than massed. The turning point came between June 10 and 12, as American armor solidified the Carrington link, uniting Utah and Omaha beachheads into a 10-mile deep front. German counterattacks, expected to cleave this junction, disintegrated under Allied coordination. Panzergruppe West's commander, General Leogaire von Schweppenberg, raged at stalled reserves, his tanks stranded by bombed bridges and fuel shortages. Allied deception, including Operation Fortitude's Phantom Army at Calais, kept German divisions split, delaying reinforcements until June 12. American engineers, laying steel matting across muddy fields, enabled 13,000 vehicles, including 2,000 tanks, to move inland by mid-June. Mulberry B, at Arromanches, operational by June 14, funneled 1,900 tons of cargo per landing ship tank daily, while Mulberry A at Omaha faced delays until June 16, later wrecked by storms. German Panzers, designed for sweeping advances, foundered in defensive roles. The 21st Panzer Division, its roughly 100 tanks and assault guns scattered, lost 30% to breakdowns and air attacks before engaging. The 12th SS, its Panthers slowed by fuel scarcity, managed only localized thrusts against Canadian positions, their crews exhausted by relentless Allied strafing. A German lieutenant near Falaise saw his platoon's tanks dwindle, half lost to typhoon rockets and mechanical failures. French villagers, emerging from cellars, whispered German positions to American patrols, turning hedgerows into death traps for panzers. Marie-Louise Osmont noted the shift in her diary. American trucks now clogged roads, their engines a constant drone, while German columns retreated in disarray. American tankers, though battered, adapted swiftly. Shermans, lighter than Panthers at 32 tons, maneuvered better in the bocage, their crews learning to exploit narrow lanes. Engineers, under fire, built temporary docks and cleared minefields, ensuring supply lines held. A 70th Tank Battalion gunner, reloading under shell fire, described the rhythm: fire, advance, cover, repeat. At sea, landing craft tank crews braved swells to deliver ammunition, their decks slick with oil and salt. German soldiers, meanwhile, scavenged fuel from wrecked vehicles, their radios crackling with orders that arrived too late. The French resistance, striking bridges and fuel dumps, amplified German disarray, their sabotage, ensuring Panzergruppe West's reserves, remained fragmented. Allied air superiority, with 11,590 aircraft, reshaped the battlefield. Typhoons and P-47 seconds strafed German columns, their rockets punching through Panther armor. By June 13, the beachhead spanned 10 miles, with American armor holding key towns like Isigny. German commanders, trained for fluid warfare, struggled with static defenses, their centralized command buckling under Allied tempo. A 12th SS Panzer crewman, reloading his 88mm gun, cursed as American Shermans outflanked his position, their speed defying German expectations. Engineers' innovations, like hedge-cutting blades, allowed Shermans to burst through bocage, catching panzers in open fields. The German blitzkrieg myth, built on 1940's lightning victories, cracked as American engineering and air power dictated the pace. The human cost weighed heavily. American tankers, cramped in steel hulls, brewed coffee between firefights, their eyes red from smoke and sleeplessness. German crews, low on shells, abandoned stalled tanks, their morale eroding with each Allied advance. Civilians like Osmont rationed bread amid rubble, their homes shaking from artillery duels, yet they slipped notes to resistance fighters, guiding Allied patrols. A 70th Tank Battalion driver, dodging a Panzerfaust, swerved his Sherman into a ditch, his crew bailing out under machine gun fire. Across the lines, a 21st Panzer gunner, his tank burning, fled into hedgerows, his unit's cohesion gone. The French landscape, pockmarked by craters, bore witness to the clash. American tanks advanced, their treads churning earth, while German panzers retreated, their tracks mired in defeat. Allied logistics, anchored by landing ship tanks, sustained the push. Each vessel, unloading 1,900 tons in sequenced waves, kept armor fueled and armed. Mulberry harbors, despite delays and storms, processed thousands of tons daily, their steel caissons a testament to engineering grit. German attempts to regroup faltered as Allied aircraft bombed fuel convoys, leaving Panzergruppe West's tanks stranded. By late June, American forces held a 20-mile front, their Shermans outnumbering German armor 3-1. The 12th SS, battered by Canadian and British thrusts, lost cohesion, its Panthers no match for Allied coordination. A German staff officer at Lacaine, sifting through bombed-out maps, admitted the truth. Panzergruppe West's counterattack had failed, outpaced by American speed and resilience. The bocage remained a brutal arena. Shermans, their 75mm guns barking, dueled panzers in misty valleys, where a single shot could end a crew's fight. Engineers bridged streams under fire, their Bailey spans supporting 32-ton tanks with precision. French civilians, risking execution, fed Allied scouts, their whispers turning ambushes against German patrols. Marie-Louise Osmont, watching from her shattered village, saw hope in American convoys, their endless rumble drowning out German retreat. The invasion's momentum, driven by engineering and air power, had shifted the war's tide, leaving German armor scattered and command in disarray. By mid-June 1944, American armor carved a 20-mile deep beachhead in Normandy, their 32-ton Shermans outpacing German Panzers, mired in chaos. Approximately 230 landing ship tanks, each unloading up to 1,900 tons of vehicles and cargo, had transformed Utah and Omaha into supply arteries, fueling advances towards St. Lo and Caen. Tank crews of the 70th Tank Battalion, their faces caked with dust, drove through bocage, hedge-cutting blades ripping through earthen walls. Allied air forces, with 11,590 aircraft flying 14,674 sorties on D-Day, kept German columns pinned, their rockets shattering fuel convoys. Engineers erected Bailey bridges in under 6 hours, supporting 32-ton tanks across flooded streams. The number that matters is 13,000 vehicles, landed by June 12, driving Allied momentum. Mulberry B at Arromanches, operational by June 14, processed thousands of tons daily, though Mulberry A at Omaha, delayed until June 16, faced storms that wrecked it by June 22. The inflection point struck between June 10 and 12, as American forces linked beachheads through Corentin, defying German hopes of splitting the front. Panzergruppe West's commander, General Leo Gehr von Schweppenberg, stared at ruined maps in Lacane, his tanks stranded by Allied bombs. German doctrine, built on blitzkrieg's lightning strikes, crumbled against decentralized Allied tactics and air supremacy. A 12th SS Panzer officer near Caen, cursed as typhoons, shredded his column, panthers burning in fields. Operation Fortitude, faking an invasion at Calais, kept German reserves divided, delaying Panzerlehr until June 12. American engineers, laying steel matting across muddy fields, ensured tanks moved faster than German counterattacks could form. The German blitzkrieg myth, forged in 1940, collapsed as Shermans outmaneuvered heavier Panthers in Normandy's tight terrain. American tankers, guided by radio and maps, adapted to the bocage's confines, their 75mm guns dueling hidden Panzerfausts. A 70th Tank Battalion driver, dodging anti-tank fire, swerved his Sherman through a hedgerow, his crew's shells silencing a German gun. Engineers, under sniper fire, cleared minefields and built roads, their steel tracks stabilizing supply lines. At Omaha, landing craft tank crews, like those under Lieutenant Dean Rockwell, ferried supplies after delivering duplex drive tanks at 4 knots through heavy surf. French civilians, like Marie-Louise Osmont, watched American convoys clog roads near Caen, their rumble drowning out retreating German trucks. The French resistance, derailing trains and torching fuel dumps, ensured Panzergruppe West's roughly 100 tanks and assault guns in the 21st Panzer Division arrived piecemeal, their cohesion shattered. German commanders, trained for sweeping armored thrusts, struggled with defensive roles. The 21st Panzer Division, probing near Bayeux, lost vehicles to breakdowns and airstrikes before engaging. The 12th SS, battling Canadians near Caen, saw Panthers bog in craters, their 50-ton frames no match for Allied mobility. A German gunner, reloading his 88mm under fire, watched Shermans flank his position, their speed defying German plans. Allied air power, targeting bridges and railheads, destroyed 70% of crossing points, forcing panzers onto congested roads. Oberst Hermann von Opperlein-Bronikowski, commanding the 21st's armor, pushed for rapid counterattacks, but centralized orders and bombed infrastructure stalled his tanks. By June 13, American forces held key towns like Isigny, their Shermans outnumbering German armor 3-1. The human element shaped the tide. American tankers, brewing coffee in their hulls, shared cigarettes with infantrymen clinging to treads for cover. German crews, low on fuel, scavenged from wrecked panzers, their radios silent as orders failed to arrive. French villagers, risking death, guided Allied patrols through hedgerows, their whispers turning ambushes against German scouts. Marie-Louise Osmont, in her diary, noted American tanks as a tide of steel, their treads tearing fields, once held by Wehrmacht columns. Engineers, bridging craters under fire, ensured supply trucks followed armor. Their Bailey spans a lifeline for the advance. The German blitzkrieg, once feared, now seemed a relic, its speed undone by Allied engineering and air dominance. Allied logistics, anchored by landing ship tanks unloading 1,900 tons per vessel, sustained the push. Each Sherman, rolling off ramps, added to a growing armored fist, outpacing German reserves. Typhoons and P-47 seconds, diving through clouds, struck panzer columns, their rockets punching through armor. German soldiers, retreating through villages, left burning tanks, their morale crumbling as Allied momentum grew. A 70th Tank Battalion gunner, firing through mist, recalled a Panzer IV exploding, its turret flung skyward. The French landscape, scarred by craters, bore witness to the shift. American tanks advanced, their engines a relentless drone, while German panzers retreated, their tracks mired in defeat. The invasion's early weeks had proven a truth. Engineering precision and rapid deployment could shatter even the fiercest armored legacy. Section 7. Aftermath. Enduring lessons of Normandy. Corrected. By July 1944, American armor, supported by approximately 230 landing ship tanks, some capable of unloading up to 1,900 tons, had turned Normandy's beaches into supply hubs. Fueling operation. Cobra's breakout. British and Canadian forces captured Cannes by mid-July through operations Charnwood and Goodwood, while American Shermans, their 32-ton frames slicing through bocage, advanced towards St. Lo. Allied air forces maintained relentless pressure, disrupting German rail and road networks, though exact sortie counts beyond D-Day's 14,674 remained fluid. Engineers, erecting Bailey bridges in under 6 hours, ensured supply lines supported 32-ton tanks, enabling the liberation of Paris by August 25. German Panzer Group West, battered by ground combat, air interdiction, abandonment, and mechanical attrition, lost roughly 1,500 tanks and assault guns by late August. German defenses crumbled under Allied momentum. The 21st Panzer Division, its roughly 100 tanks and assault guns mauled in the Falaise pocket, withdrew across the Seine by late August, its remnants reconstituting in northern France. A 12th SS Panzer crewman, fleeing Caen, saw his Panther abandoned, its 50-ton hull stalled by fuel shortages and Allied airstrikes on supply columns. French civilians, like Marie-Louise Osmont, cheered American convoys, their fields free of German troops. The blitzkrieg myth, forged in 1940, dissolved as Allied logistics and combined arms tactics overwhelmed centralized German command. American forces, outnumbering German armor by a wide margin, dictated the Western Front's collapse by spring 1945. Normandy's lessons reshaped warfare. The United States, already using landing ship tanks in the Pacific, refined amphibious tactics, with vessels capable of up to 1,900 tons, supporting rapid deployments. Engineers' hedge-cutters and Mulberry harbors became blueprints for future campaigns. German Panzer doctrine, reliant on open-field thrusts, proved obsolete against Allied infantry armor coordination, artillery, and air interdiction. The invasion's success, driven by relentless logistics and adaptive tactics, cemented engineering as war's backbone, outpacing German armor's faltering counterattacks. By July 1944, American armor, supported by approximately 230 landing ship tanks, some capable of unloading up to 1,900 tons, had turned Normandy's beaches into supply hubs, fueling Operation Cobra's breakout. British and Canadian forces captured Caen by mid-July through operations Charnwood and Goodwood, while American Shermans, their 32-ton frames slicing through bocage, advanced towards St. Lo. Allied air forces maintained relentless pressure, disrupting German rail and road networks, though exact sortie counts beyond D-Day's 14,674 remained fluid. Engineers, erecting Bailey bridges in under 6 hours, ensured supply lines supported 32-ton tanks, enabling the liberation of Paris by August 25. German Panzer Group West, battered by ground combat, air interdiction, abandonment, and mechanical attrition, lost roughly 1,500 tanks and assault guns by late August. German defenses crumbled under Allied momentum. The 21st Panzer Division, its roughly 100 tanks and assault guns mauled in the Falaise pocket, withdrew across the Seine by late August, its remnants reconstituting in northern France. A 12th SS Panzer crewman, fleeing Caen, saw his Panther abandoned, its 50-ton hull stalled by fuel shortages and Allied airstrikes on supply columns. French civilians, like Marie-Louise Osmont, cheered American convoys, their fields free of German troops. The blitzkrieg myth, forged in 1940, dissolved as Allied logistics and combined arms tactics overwhelmed centralized German command. American forces, outnumbering German armor by a wide margin, dictated the Western Front's collapse by spring 1945. Normandy's lessons reshaped warfare. The United States, already using landing ship tanks in the Pacific, refined amphibious tactics, with vessels capable of up to 1,900 tons supporting rapid deployments. Engineers' hedge-cutters and Mulberry harbors became blueprints for future campaigns. German Panzer doctrine, reliant on open-field thrusts, proved obsolete against Allied infantry armor coordination, artillery, and air interdiction. The invasion's success, driven by relentless logistics and adaptive tactics, cemented engineering as war's backbone, outpacing German armor's faltering counterattacks.